QB Chase.
Good evening, listeners, and welcome back to another very special episode of the Matter Mentality Podcast, where we talk all things training, nutrition, and psychology to optimize your performance. Today, or tonight, I am joined again by a good friend and a very special guest, Mr. Erik Bustillo. How are we doing, sir?
All good, all good. Happy to be on here again. How's everything over on that side of the world? In the future, I can say.
Man, in the future, it's going all right. It's 9 o'clock. The weather's nice. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. We get that nice time of year down here where it's like you can go for a walk and feel a nice brisk breeze, but it's not
Oh, that's
chilly
nice.
where you need a jacket yet.
Yeah. That's since I'm in Miami, it's very like the general consensus here is that it's hot and humid. So we have that brisk point of the year for a very short window.
Yeah.
But when we have it, we take advantage, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're in that nice like the Queensland, that tropic heat right now. It's like it's passing, and we're getting closer to that springtime where it's just that fresher. You wake up in the morning, it's like, oh, there's a little chill in the air. We're getting closer to that. That's a good time of year. And
That's
it
nice.
starts getting where it's like, you can still take the shirt off and go for a walk, but it's not like dehydration level hot and you just basically dying in the heat. So we got past that, which is good, which is Australia's
Yeah.
renowned weather temperature. So I'm looking forward to like that middle of the year period, which is a little bit cooler. Um, but brother, mate, we are talking all things higher level performance, corporate culture, and corporate wellness, and kind of like executive execution. I think they kind of all tie into one topic here with a very long-winded conversation, no doubt, between us. It's going to be full of nuggets, but the main thing was like last time we caught up in person overseas. Always endeavor to make sure that we catch up and chat shop. There's always a million pieces of wisdom amongst that conversation or those conversations. But we had a really big talking point. One of the programs that we had started running was our corporate wellness side. Something we don't really advertise as much, but it's definitely something that we've really structured, reviewed, assessed, and something that we're going to look at more in the future. But it's also something that you guys have started to attack. And I thought it a really good conversation to have people understand that, we do have a lot of business owners that listen to this. We have people that work in business and those sort of corporate jobs even still, is getting people to understand that the power of corporate and executive wellness and health is not just like a glitzy, Friday pizza day, drinks from the office. Like that's not corporate wellness. That's corporate fluff, in my opinion. And what's truly unique is when you get to see a wellness program in place that helps drive culture, but that culture in turn drives performance. And that's where I think the two kind of the process itself synergizes effectively. But I think again that corporate wellness kind of gets misconstrued with uh, you know, Friday beers and pizza in the office and everyone's going out drunk for the afternoon and at the end of the month piss ups and that sort of thing. How do you view it? How do you sort of view that corporate wellness side? Because I know it is something you're getting quite passionate about, but do you look at it through a similar lens? Do you look at it quite differently?
Yeah, I look at it through a similar lens. It's it's kind of frustrating to see companies talk about corporate wellness and like employee wellness, and even executives mentioning it. But at the end of the day, when you don't really see a shift in the culture, it's honestly frustrating is the best word that I can think of. There's something to this. It's like virtue signaling. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like
Yeah,
it's kind of like saying, "Hey, look at us. Look how great we are. Look what we're doing. Look how much we
yeah,
care about our employees." But at the end of the day, if something has to change, what's the first thing that's gonna change? Oh, sorry, we got to cut the wellness division.
yeah,
And it's just like that's not. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand bottom line,
yeah.
and I understand companies having to make money because if they don't make money, then they just can't function, and then they can't pay for the workplace wellness things that we look to implement. Um, but I think where change really has to happen is from the top down.
Yes.
right? And it's that way in any sort of professional structure. If you're looking at just professional companies, like people in suits kind of thing, it's going to be from the top down. If you're looking at tech companies, it's got to be from the top down. Because guess what? Like if you have a chief wellness officer, or whatever name companies want to, you know, put makeup on and say, "Hey, look what we have." But if the CEO or the CFO or the COO, who are 100% going to be, quote unquote, above that CWO, the Chief Wellness Officer, or whatever title they come up with, then okay, they're going to kind of overpower. They're going to say, "Hey, sorry, Chief Wellness Officer, but you guys got to go, or you got to cut your department by 10, 15, 20%." Um, and a lot of times, and it's the same thing in like in police and fire, like
Mhm.
in the tactical athlete space. Um, I think the most frustrating aspect of it is that, well, for one, I don't really like the virtue signaling. Like
Yeah.
I like the hey, let's make a change. Like when people talk about it and they are about it, not
Yeah.
just let's talk about it because we want attention and we want to look like we're like
Yeah.
we want to look like we care, basically. Um, but then if if they don't really believe in it, right?
Hmm.
That's one of the most frustrating things because if if you're, CEO or CFO, whoever's making the big decisions, if
Hmm.
they don't live something like what we are promoting, if they don't live it, then they're definitely going to be like, okay, this has to be one of the first things to go. So it's
Yeah.
almost like you have to convince them more than anybody.
Yeah. And I guess it like to me, it's well, I guess like even a company does have its own kind of socio-ecological system, but it's very indicative of humans as a species, right? Like if we look at downturns in economics, we look at emotional struggles, we look at like personal hurdles and obstacles to overcome. What's usually the first thing that people look for to get rid of, right? It's going to be health, wellness, well-being, coaching, nutrition. Like they're one of the usually some of the first things that people opt to get rid of. Though, if we look at the downstream effects of those systems, those processes, the execution, the traits that they teach, the traits they develop, usually lead to someone either promoting, getting better, getting better workplace performance, getting better returns on financial decisions, on making better financial decisions, delayed gratification. It's quite ironic, if not sometimes frustrating, to see like at a coaching or culture or performance level it's one of the first systems that's removed during that downturn, but yet it has one of the biggest yield returns on that initial investment. If you, like you said, buy into it, truly believe in it, and actually give it a chance and effort to take root. I feel like you said, a lot of times companies will preach about it and stand on their soapbox and get on the whole we invest in our people sort of mantra, but then you take that mask away or the shell, and underneath it is absolutely zero substance. And you start to go, okay, you're not really about bettering your staff. You're more about being perceived as bettering your staff, but you don't actually believe it. And the second there's a struggle, it's the first thing that's gone. But when we look at the downturn, the downstream effects, to me, the data is quite clear that it makes your people better, which makes your company better. We kind of have a slogan for our wellness corporate structure, which is matter builds better people build better companies. That's
For
like the
sure.
way we kind of approach it for that exact reason. But yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are there because to me it kind of does emulate a little bit of that social reflection. First time, as soon as there's a struggle, a downturn, that economic hit, what's the first thing people opt to get rid of? Us.
Yeah, most definitely. And even if people aren't necessarily working with, let's say, like a coach, if they
Mhm.
if they hire a dietitian to work with them, if they hire a nutrition coach, if they hire a personal trainer, like if they're just maybe someone who goes to the gym regularly, let's just say, at
Mhm.
least they're doing that. But still, when the times get tough in their personal life, in their work life, they stop going to the gym.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like their nutrition tends to take a hit.
Yeah.
Um, so that's one of the, and I understand like when it comes to just overall wellness and well-being, people it's it's easy for a lot of people to exercise less. It's
Hmm.
easy for a lot of people to say, I'm just gonna eat whatever the easiest thing is. And if they don't
Yeah.
have those tendencies and those habits already in place where they naturally kind of gravitate towards the more whole foods and not just buying fast food all the time, or if they are
Hmm.
buying fast food, is it whole food type things, or is it just going to be like some, God knows what is made there? I think majority of people don't have those habits in place.
Hmm.
So it's like for me, I kind of try to have people be similar to me in that aspect. Now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but what I mean by that is that I have been physically active basically all my life. I was always in sports and all those sorts of things.
Hmm.
But just from the time when I started, let's say lifting weights regularly, like going into the gym, it has been over 20 years that
Hmm.
I've been consistent with that. Like for me, yeah, training is something that I enjoy. And training in all aspects, right? It's not just like the lifting weights, it's going to be like the running and like I've basically trained myself to enjoy the things that people say they suck. Like embrace the suck and embrace the boring.
Hmm.
Like I'm perfectly fine with going down the boring running path or hopping on a treadmill and doing that, which is very boring. But it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
whatever. If I'm moving my body, I'm enjoying that.
Yeah.
So I try to kind of shift people into being that way. Like if someone asks me, "Oh, hey, like, do you work out? You look like you work out." I'm like, "Do you eat?" You know what I mean? Like for me, it's like it's
Yeah.
just it's second nature
It's a
to be
non-negotiable.
doing these. So I try to get people to kind of see it in that way that it's like just little by little. But at the end of the day, it's tricky because there's this expression that you can lead a horse to water, but you
Yeah.
can't make it drink. Um, And I learned that very early on in my career as a registered dietitian. Um, but then I also started noticing some horses don't even want to be led to water,
Yeah.
right? And it's like how do we convince those people
Hmm.
to make changes? And that's like in some cases it's a slowly but surely thing, which is in some cases how the corporate culture is going to change slowly but surely. And in other cases, it's just like the big wake up call. The person went up the stairs and they couldn't hold a conversation. The person
Yeah.
got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which is a big conversation in the overall, excuse me, in the overall wellness space, discussing something like diabetes, type 2 diabetes in particular. Um, so it's like a part of it is understanding like I got to try my best, and at the same time, some people just are not going to put that best foot forward. You know?
It's as a coach, as an executor, as a if you want to say like a corporate leader, cultural leader, like program leader, whatever you want to refer to it as, we go in, and it's one of the things that I noticed when we first got into it, is like you go in with the best intentions, you go in with morally sound intentions that you want to see people be better. And then you realize that it's such a different population demographic base. Like
Hmm.
you talk amongst our colleagues, you talk amongst the clients that come to us looking for us, and they're already in that stage of change where they're ready to execute. They're already in that stage of change where they want to do it. You go to the corporate wellness side, and if it's not paid for, they have no interest. Like getting the company to pay for it is a huge thing because most people won't do it for themselves until they start to see some benefit, right? But at the same time, a large part of them, they're not even. It's like when people say we don't even know the questions to ask to get the answers we want. These people not only don't know the questions to ask, they don't want to ask them, and that's the part where to me it's like I take it more as a responsibility. I take it even more personally. I know we probably shouldn't, but I take that. I'm like, okay, well, you need me more than you realize. I need to make you realize that importance without being egotistical and sounding like a dick. I need to get through to you so you realize how important this is for your own life. And
Hmm.
to me, it's just it's not a fulfilling career and pursuit to just work 40, 50 years inside a cubicle, eating the same crappy almond croissants, the same terrible coffee that's filled with, 500-calorie creamer, and the same Friday beers, wine, and pizza and takeaway, and God knows whatever else you eat. Like, we watch a lot of American sitcoms over here, and it's always like Chinese takeaway at the office or burgers delivered to the office, especially now in the era of Uber Eats and instant comfortability. Like,
Yep.
you spend 50 years doing that, it adds up on your body. And to me, it's like, you don't even realize you need me. That makes me realize how much I need to get through to you.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's where the educational component comes in,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's where like getting in like for me, I do a lot of workshops and seminars,
Mm-hmm.
um, and those educational opportunities are huge because if someone is at that point of like that trans theoretical stages of change,
Mm-hmm.
where they're like contemplating and whatnot, um, it can be that moment where they're like, dang, you know what? I gotta turn into, you know, the action phase or
Mm-hmm.
the people have to they have to hear something
Yeah.
that makes them be like, oh dang, this is what it is. Because Ben, I'll tell you, I get questions about like I mean you'll see the crazy people on the internet saying all the wild things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean people are listening. People hear what is being said out there. And then I get questions about it. So then for me, it's kind of like in some of these educational sessions, it's it's teaching people why going 100% carnivore, let's just say, isn't going to be a solution for the majority of people, even though it's extremely popular right now.
Mm-hmm.
But because these people are asking questions, they're like, okay, they want to make some kind of a change or at least learn about something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think for us, what we have to do is really take advantage of teaching, of like
Yes.
hitting these nuggets and having people just kind of be like have these aha moments of,
Mm-hmm.
oh wow, what Ben said in that presentation, that was that really hit home in some way, shape, or form. Um, and because at the end of the day, it's very true that we can't necessarily force people to do
Mm-hmm.
anything. In a corporate wellness setting, a lot of times when companies get in there, it's because the higher ups, if you will, saw some sort of an advantage in doing this. Maybe
Yes.
it's a benefit to insurances and it had
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with actually caring about their employees. Um, Maybe it really is just trying to improve bottom line in some way so that now they're like, okay, this workplace wellness stuff, it's become popular, so let me just try implementing it. So we're willing to pay the, however many thousands or millions of dollars to help save. Because it's true, for every dollar that gets invested, the return on investment is like $3 back
Mm-hmm.
because now you have more efficient employees. You have less sick days. Like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, people are just not just healthier, but they're happier, they're feeling better. The things that we see when our patients and our clients are actually putting in the work, slowly but surely making improvement, we make that happen in their workplace culture. But then it's just continuing to kind of convince these people of like we're convincing people to want to take care of themselves is
Mm-hmm.
really
Yeah.
what it comes down to. You know what I mean?
And it's a wild concept that that's what it is, right? In 2025, that and the thing that I think most caught my attention with that was our first exposure to it was in construction and mining in Australia, which is a very rugged industry, just like it is in America, blue collar, lumberjack, flannel jacket type thing. It's they're very roughneck, rugged people. And you go from bodybuilders that are very, whilst we're grunt, cuss, heavy swearers, we're pretty princey, right? Like we're comfortable. We have our food, we have our training environment. We Most of us are either coaches in the fitness space, in gyms. Like we're pretty secure and comfortable and warm and taken care of.
Hmm.
You get to these rugged, roughneck, you know, they do 2 weeks on site in 60-degree heat. They do, um, you know, 14 to 16-hour days below ground. They don't want to hear that they have to train 5, 6 days a week. They don't want to hear they can't drink beer. They don't want to hear they can't have the hot pie and chips or pizza and dinner for, pizza and chips for dinner. So for us, it's like you said, getting them to understand the lowest possible entry point, those lowest hanging fruits, the biggest blocks first, whatever terminology you want to hit them with, is trying to get them to understand. And that was like one of the approaches that really caught me. I had to systemize and reframe my own mentality to it, which was like, next to no one is me. Next to no one is as health conscious on the average in like you pluck someone from the population. Next to no one is as adherent and consistent as someone like me because I live a very extreme life. I can't coach construction wellness and construction performance from the lens that, oh, we're all going to be bodybuilders. Next to none of them give a shit about a 5-day training program. What they wanted, like the only thing that really got them moving was, like you said, I had to help them care about helping themselves. Like touching on those really heavy pain points. Do you want to be around long enough to see your grandkids? Do you want to be around long enough to see your kids grow up? Because right now, working 16 hours a day, drinking alcohol every night, smoking 10 packs of cigarettes a week, eating nothing but trans fats and processed foods, you're dropping dead by 60. And as much as it's rough to get that through, that's the language that they have to hear to get them to go, oh, I should really care about myself. And
Yeah,
lo and behold, for some of them it did. But like you said, earlier in the conversation, it was micro behaviors, micro changes over time, getting in with education, information, holding, we would do like monthly catch up calls. We would do like, weekly check ins and accountability touch points just to say, did you get your sleep? Did you get your steps? Did you get some hydration? These guys are working in construction in 45 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Celsius, and 70, 80% humidity. It's like you are literally sweating your liver and kidney at this point. Can you just get some more water in and put some electrolytes in it, put some boost in it? Literally just throw something in there that is like, going to be that slight little edge to health that you're not currently doing. And that's where the trickle effect started to come. But like you said, it was initially just trying to find a way to get in. And I wish every corporate wellness program would have our care to it, our being myself and you, because I know that you give just as much shit as I do in the way to cut through and kind of get them to understand. It's not just to get the bottom dollar or just to cover the insurance. It's if you don't have to replace dying sick workers, it's usually cheaper if you retain the staff you currently have and they get better. If they were
yeah,
healthier, if they're happier, more productive, if they sleep better, less injuries, less accidents, less mistakes, less hiccups. All of that leads to a greater bottom dollar, but also your staff want to stay a part of your culture and they actually feel like you give a shit. We come in and we're like, hey, we want you to go home to your kids. We want you to be around till you're 65, 70 to see your grandkids. We want you to be, healthy and active well into old age, not just broken and decrepit. But, it's like you said, getting them to care about their own health, it's quite challenging.
for sure, most definitely. And that makes me think like, did you like in working with construction and mining, did you find that there was something in particular that that really hit home? Because like that I know this very well because I've had people who oh, I'll never forget. I had this one patient in particular. There was regular exposure, right, to a dietitian, um, just a place where I used to work, where it was a pretty big like corporate wellness company. Um, Before I started working there, obviously the company existed before me, kind of thing. So when I started working there, I want to say it was maybe 3 or 4 weeks within me starting, I saw a patient and the patient was kind of like freaked out. The reason being, and mind you, this person became like a friend of mine, but they had a heart attack a few weeks before turning 40 years old.
Oh wow.
So, this is a young person. Um, and it wasn't until that happened that they were like, oh wow, I got to make a change. And they told me all the time, they were like, yeah, I would see the person that used to work here, like the dietitian that was here before, and I was just like, whatever, no big deal, no big deal. But when they came to see me on that particular day, they were ready. They were
Mhm.
scared, like basically out of their minds. They were just kind of like, I have to make a change. So when they walked in, they were like, write me a diet plan, like all these things. And I was kind of like, wait, hold on, like take a step back. And then that was where like the educational, component of it came in. Um, and this person made huge progress.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing progress. And then at the same time, there have been people that just kind of came in to see me and didn't really have a strong why.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? They didn't really have this purpose to doing this. They basically came to see me, I mean, because they had to,
Yeah.
essentially, right? And mind you, people like some of these people have families, from children to spouses, in some cases even grandchildren. Um, and all of those things just they still didn't care. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Um, so I'm curious to hear in your experience, because that those, like you said, that's definitely a tough and rough group to work with, where they can easily be like, drink more water, like that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm going home and drinking beer. Like that's
Yes.
what I'm looking forward to doing.
Yes.
So like that, I don't know, did you find anything that really seemed to work well, or was it just like in general, some people just didn't give a crap and others were like, okay, what this guy's talking about, it makes sense.
The thing that we noticed, so the company, because the company wasn't, highly well off, they were investing very early on in the career of the company. They were firstly very selective with who they involved in the program. Like it wasn't just simply like a pay and spray scatter to everyone. But one of the ways in which that we did get through was I'm very big in existentialism. I'm very big in like almost like meta cosmic understanding of morality and responsibility. I will use very heavy conversations to get people to anchor to the why and the reason why they do things. Like I love reading things like Man's Search for Meaning, Understanding, Finding Pain, like meaning through suffering, and finding that sort of that approach. And usually it's hard at a group level. Like if you were to work with like say run a 50, 60, 100 person workshop on a job site, it would be harder to cut through, but because a lot of them were coming into having families, seeing their parents or like their grandparents or even they themselves have kids, it was very easy for the ones that did actually buy in and pay attention, was to get them at that really heavy pain point. And a lot of time people don't like to go there and like go for straight for the throat, if you will, like metaphorically speaking, like kind of really going for the kill. But when you can see someone's life is more your responsibility than they recognize, and this could be a determining factor whether they die at 50 or whether they get to 75. It's almost like it becomes a almost like a necessity to have them understand, regardless of how rough or harsh or tough it sounds sometimes. Like to me, that's a very real way up on the scale. The balance for me is like, how can I cut through with this? And like, given the backgrounds that they were, I would really like go straight in on, talking about death, talk whether it be like death of a family member, death of themselves, death of what that, and but not just oh you'll drop dead, but playing on that masculine legacy urge. What are you going to leave behind? What's here without you? Like, are you really working? And especially in mining, guys are doing 2, 3 week stints straight away from their family, away from their friends, away from life to try and make money. Like, are you really working this career? You put your body through this to drop dead and not even see the fruits of your labor, not even see the return on what you're doing. Like, it's all well and good to put your family first, that you want to make money and provide, but You can't provide much if you're dead. You can't provide much if you're in a hospital. You can't provide much with renal failure. And these are all the directions you're heading. Cancers, liver failure, kidney failure, organ shutdown. These aren't foreign concepts if you look at the data and the way you live. And some of them, it took that level of conversation to really cut through. And the thing was, like, I don't think you could do that in the corporate wellness space, but in that rugged construction wellness space, it was almost the only way to get through.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I will attest to it is something that it is a conversation in corporate settings, like in less rugged spaces. Um, I mean, of course, it also depends on the individual that you're speaking with.
Absolutely,
Like
yeah.
for you know what I mean? Like for practitioners, knowing getting a feel for the room. You
Oh
know what I'm
yeah, yeah. You
saying?
got another room to use those sort of like those drawing points.
Yeah. But there are some people that respond well to
Yeah,
that type of conversation. Um, and then for others, not so much, you know. Man, I'll never forget. I was working. This was earlier on in my career. Um, it was it was a doctor's office that I was working in, and I was like running the wellness division there. But it was really cool. Like I was doing metabolic cart VO2 max tests on people. I was like reading blood work, um, and then talking with these patients. And I had some guy basically like get up and like walk out on me because he got pissed at like some of the stuff that I was saying. Um, I was essentially trying to convince this guy like, listen, like you got to make a change. You know what I mean? I was pretty straightforward with him,
hmm,
but it was a learning point for me
yeah,
where I was like, this guy needed that message in a different way,
yeah,
and it was also a learning point of like know when to stop
yeah,
because this person did not want to hear someone telling him like, hey, you have to buy this program that's going to help you be around for your newborn daughter or son. I forgot what
yeah,
they had relatively recently had. But that was a learning point for me. But then other people need to hear that. Like when you
yeah,
talk about like it's just the when you have that existential and like the mortality conversation, for some people it really brings them to this wow, like I never really thought about that. One of my favorite things to do in workshops, and mind you, I'm in a lot of these workshops, I'm working with very high level individuals.
hmm,
Oftentimes, I ask them I give them like 30 seconds, and I say either write it on your phone or on a piece of paper. Write down the three most important people in your lives. And of course, animals count. I tell them dogs count and whatever else. Time is up. Boom. All right. How many people listed? Parents, children, pets, whatever. And then the big aha moment is how many people listed themselves.
yes, yeah.
And
None.
most of the time, it's minimal. No, don't get me wrong. I have had some workshops where people were like, where they listed themselves, and I'm super happy that they did. I'm like, I'm proud of you for thinking about yourself because a lot of the time people forget to put themselves on this
Yeah.
list, and in reality, it sounds selfish, but you should be the number one most important person in
Hmm,
your life from a selfish and a selfless standpoint.
hmm,
You want to be the number one most important person in your life because you want to see
hmm,
your children, your spouse, your grandchildren, your siblings, your friends, your family, whomever, you want to see them do well. And you want to give them the best of you,
yes.
right? That's like I don't know if you guys ever listened to them, but shout out to this band called The Starting Line. Back in the day, they had this song called "The Best of Me." But anyway, that's my emo rock pop punk side coming out. It's like are people are you giving them the best of you? Because I think a lot of the time, especially for men, it's kind of like be that provider. Your
Yes.
family comes first. Like if
Yes.
it comes down to it, you're gonna sacrifice yourself.
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to work, I'm willing to die for my family, all these things. It's getting them to shift it like, am I willing to live? Am I willing to be
Yes.
healthy for my family? And just people respond in different ways, but the conversation of death, of living, and we could probably jump into this in a couple of minutes, but like the statistics
Hmm.
behind things like either cancers or cholesterol or diabetes and whatever, like for some people that triggers this, oh wow, yeah, like I should make a change, you know? And I'm sure you've come across these people that no matter what, they were just like, I'm gonna keep on drinking
Yeah.
not exaggerating, 12 cans of, whatever soda beverage
Hmm.
company. Like they didn't care at all.
But it's also indicative of like what we accept as a society in terms of like, and this is just it's a little bit of a tangent, different, but it's something me in Brooklyn. So Brooklyn, she spent a long time in agency corporate before she went full time with us, right? And so she saw all the ins and outs. I've worked and lived with people that are in the corporate space, whether they just want to be bodybuilders or whether they want to be like, just physique or improve health, performance athletes, whatever. And you're often the shunned one out, or the shunned one. You're left ostracized. You're left out if you aren't involved in the drinking culture, the hangout culture, the after work catch ups, drinks and food, the kitchen cupboards, the pantries. They're all stored with chocolates, nuts, snacks, bars, wines in the fridge. There's soft drinks in the fridge. It's it's so it's so rare to actually have a corporate structure or system where they've got a preventative approach, preventative nutrition. Just like, do you even have waters in the fridge? Do you have protein bars instead of chocolate bars? Do you have, you know, is there a salad vendor downstairs instead of the takeaway pizza or burger place? It's so indicative, like the culture, that it it not only makes it hard for people to change, but it then becomes like this. Do they even want to? Because all they're surrounded by is then the social expectations and the social recourse if they do change. And that's where it's like it's hard when we go to like, you know, I rarely talk about systemic issues, because more so I'm a big believer in self agency, autonomy, and ownership. But it's we as a Western culture very much allow gluttony and comfortability, which then impacts overall health to the point that corporations, instead of rewarding with giving you long-term longevity in life, they reward you with snacks, trans fats, processed foods, highly palatable foods, multi-macronutrient dense foods, whilst you sit at a desk all day, do next to zero movement, and then you wonder why you've crashed by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Like it, the the culture has to change to get these people even having the conversations about cancer, type 2 diabetes, heart attacks, cholesterol issues. Like that to me is like it's such a part and parcel problem. It's such a like it's almost synonymous to me, because the culture of nutrition awareness health is so poor that even at a socio-cultural level, even if someone does want to change, it's so hard to get them to, because the rest of the crew, the team, the site, the company doesn't really care or aren't really bought in. You know what I mean?
Most definitely. That you make some really good points there because it's like we also have to help people understand that, if everyone is jumping off the bridge, you don't have to jump off the bridge
Yeah.
also, right? Um, but even at a cultural level, because if we were to turn this into a societal conversation, like the big picture, um, I think we have to take a moment and acknowledge the fact that alcohol overconsumption is a huge problem.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And but just having these conversations, and again, this is where in the workplace wellness setting, this is where these like educational sessions and these workshops, I enjoy doing things like lunch and learns and
Hmm.
any opportunity to teach people
Hmm.
something. Um, a lot of the time, the alcohol conversation, it tends to be a bit of a controversial one.
Hmm.
Um, because it is such a normal part
Yes.
of the culture that once you start, ruffling a little bit of feathers, like it's like if you're working with someone who has a significant other.
Hmm.
If the significant other is on board,
So much easier.
way easier. It's
Yeah.
just like it's just a better conversation. It's just a better
Yeah.
dynamic. If it's only the one person who's on board and the other one isn't, that can potentially, it's not guaranteed going to be a problem, but it could potentially be an issue, not just for their ease of executing with what we're doing, but more so the conflict that
Yeah.
it can bring at home because now maybe certain date nights are looking a little bit different,
Yeah.
you know? The alcohol consumption, which for some people it's so normal to overdo it on a regular basis, now it turns a little bit less.
Hmm.
Um, so imagine in a corporate setting where people are trying to like make big deals and all these
Yeah.
things, and alcohol is just such a normal part of this societal aspect that it's like some people have to either learn to acknowledge the fact that all right, I don't have to consume alcohol. And
Hmm.
if anybody asks me, I can just either say no, or it's kind of playing the game
Hmm.
and getting the drink that looks like they're drinking
Yeah.
something so
Yeah.
that people just don't ask them anything. As stupid as it might sound when you think about like the why do I care what anybody says or thinks? It's a real part of
It
just
is.
corporate and real life, if you will, which is ridiculous because alcohol, it just it's probably done more bad than good if I were to take a guess. And that's one of those conversations that people need to just kind of hear like, hey, I never thought about how alcohol is negatively affecting my productivity, my
Hmm.
overall health, my judgment. Like this is why I feel so bad because every night when I get home from work, I'm drinking X numbers of, beer or scotch, whiskey, rum, whatever it might be. So it's those educational sessions that just kind of hit home, and it's like maybe sometimes we do have to talk about the bigger societal issues with people.
Hmm. No, I completely agree. I think it's especially like if we look at like Western cultures, right? Like we look at England, America, Australia, very heavy drinking cultures, drinking countries. Like we brag about, debate, and argue online about who can drink the most alcohol and whose beer is lighter or heavier, and you know that 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 culture of football hooliganism. It's rampant in our countries, but at the same time, it's then rampant in our work cultures. And to me, it's like it's always an interesting conversation coming up to where those people draw the line on what they're willing to give up, what they're willing to decisions they're willing to make. But it starts to reflect because not only then do you reflect the cultural shift in the office, but you then have to look at what's the cultural ramifications of their personal life. And is it going to last? Are they only involved in the corporate space, or do they have friendships outside of that? Do they have home lives outside of that? Outside of that, we look at the Bronfman Brenner's ecological model, and there's the individual person, but it scales out, and it's where that person fits inside the local community, the social community, the national community, the chronological loop over time. How does that change and evolve? That to me, all those conversations about nutrition, alcohol, the effects of that on their performance all have to be part of the conversation. But that then becomes even broader than the corporate space, and we start talking at very social level change that we're trying to modify at the individual level inside a company culture. And it's very heavy conversations, but it's something that I think it's our duty to have, but it's like with the unfortunate side is we've got to play the game to kind of get through it. This is where I'd really love to kind of head the conversation next as well. You touched on statistics before as well, but one of the things that I really like to see is people understanding that their life generally improves from these wellness programs, from actually being from being wellness orientated, not bodybuilder focused. I always realize that I'm an outlier in that. It's an extreme. A lot of the people that I work with in this space is just more so, can we do one less dumb thing, right? It's so at a cultural level, getting one of our clients in the culture program reported having the first time in 20 years what a normal shit felt like, pardon my French, because he'd never had that much fiber. He'd never had that much water and like whole foods that he didn't
Yeah.
realize that his bowel movements weren't supposed to come out like that. And I was like, you're a 40-year-old grown man and you don't remember what that feels like. That is a
Wow.
horrible recognition. But
Yep.
it's like that starts to become the conversations we're having. To me, it's like we need to get to these conversations because A, it improves health by all means, but then we start to head down what does this do for your life individually as a person, and but also then how does it improve that? How does it work with the company? How does your life get better from this? Because like you said, sort of touched on before, right? If we're not drunk every night, suddenly the next day feels a little bit better. If we're not hungover, we're a little bit more hydrated. If we're not
Yep.
sleeping in because we're late, we've got time to make some good solid food choices before the morning. We're not just getting the iced cafe, Starbucks latte with 5,000 calories and
Hmm.
an almond croissant and trying to start our day on that. Those decisions then stockpile, they start to accumulate, and then all of a sudden you're more effective at work. You're getting more recognition. You're getting rewarded from the boss, or you're getting praise because all of a sudden your efficiencies 10x. Really, all you did was be a little bit healthier. But it's trying to get those conversations at the individual level, the cultural level, and the social level. People realize like health is not just having a six pack. It overall improves your life in and outside of work.
Most definitely. And a huge part of that is ensuring that the quote unquote higher ups see that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because the higher ups are the ones who make the decision on like, hey, are we going to keep on working with these guys or not from just workplace wellness related things. Um, but that's where if people are living this, if the C-suite individuals, if
Mm-hmm.
you will, if they live this stuff, then they understand. Like they know what eating more protein, eating more fiber, drinking less alcohol, they know what it feels like,
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this is like, I mean, this is a message to anyone in a C-suite from corporations to police and fire departments. Like it has to be from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand that making these changes will absolutely lead to better functioning individuals,
Mm-hmm.
which will absolutely lead, like, this is not guesswork. This is 100% proven. If
Mm-hmm.
you're incorporating some sort of a corporate wellness program into your work and your departments, and people execute on them, it's for sure happier, healthier humans, more productive, more efficient, less work days. People are in a better mood,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then of course the costs that it saves and generates,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's less sick days. That alone is huge. People feeling better at work, that is huge for productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine if you have someone who is just suffering from like an insane amount of IBS all the time. Where are they getting that IBS from? More than likely, it's the stress from work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, corporate wellness programs can help shift cultures. There's still going to be deadlines. There's still going to be all these things. But if the higher ups are willing and open to making changes into like their approach, for example, like that alone can make a huge shift. Now you have people exercising, eating better, and doing all these other things. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's huge. So the C-suite people, the from chiefs to captains and lieutenants and sergeants and all of that, like just got to understand that this shift is so important, not just for the bottom line,
Mm-hmm.
but for just productivity all around. And that's that we haven't even really talked about things like, the unfortunate conversation of like suicide,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of these things they tie into that. Your health and well-being, like you said, Ben, it's not just are they getting a six pack? The six pack can be like a secondary outcome that comes from
Mm-hmm.
feeling and performing just way better as an individual and even as an employee, right?
Exactly. And I'm curious how how do you attack this? Like you're taking this to a captain, you're taking this to a high performance sort of corporate environment. Are you attacking this directly to like, are you trying to get a weigh in with the C-suite team, with the CFO, CEO to say, hey, look, we can return and improve in your bottom dollar, but also you have to buy into believing your staff can be healthier? Or are you going to sort of like more of that mid-level, let's try and get our foot in the door, get a few people healthy and then prove it? How do you attack that? What's your like, do you go with the bottom dollar return to the C-suite first to say this is how it can improve? Or are you looking at let's make the team healthy, get a few people healthy, and then say, hey, C-suite team, this is actually a really good long-term play?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a I say it's a combination of a few things actually. So well, for one, let's say so I started up a basically a functional fitness class,
Mhm.
if you will, for a police department down here. Um, Now, the way that I went about that, I approached the chief, who in this department, like chief is top dog.
Mhm.
Um, and we got a meeting set up, and they loved the idea. Um, and that, it's still been going. Like I left that company, and they still incorporate the functional fitness classes on the days that we had set up and all of that. Why do I share that story? Because the chief, who also became a friend of mine, lives it. This man has been physically active his entire life.
Mhm.
And when someone approached him about, hey, why don't you let me bring this into your department to help officers who are on patrol, people who are training to become police officers, to help your lieutenants and your captains and your deputy chiefs and the people who work admin, who have nothing to do with police work on the ground, but they make sure that people are getting paid or whatever it might
Mhm.
be. Um, the buy-in was already there.
Yeah.
So that was a very easy sell. We just had to make sure that like the HR department like okayed everything. So
Yeah.
that was easy. And I will also say this is an important factor. It didn't cost the police department anything,
Mhm.
right? Because the way that it worked was I was an employee of X company. X company has a contract with Y company. Chief is the chief of Y company's police department. So basically, the police department didn't have to pay anything because I'm an employee who has a contract, who's the company that I work for has a contract with this company. So now, like, it didn't cost them anything. The reason I share that, cost ends up being an important part of the
Yeah.
decision making system, right? Um, Now, that being said, there are, in this particular case, company Y was a municipality. So, like, you'll see that some municipalities have like wellness funds and that sort of thing. So they'll
Mhm.
have money for that. So anyway, that was an easy sell, right? Now, where have things not worked so well? Like I've tried to approach companies, municipalities, and just kind of explain to them like, hey, like let me and my team bring some kind of wellness. This is without me getting into like super detailed stuff, but sending emails, like making phone calls, going in person, setting up video chats and being like, hey, like this is what my team and I have to offer. Um, like let me bring that in. And I will talk about things like the bottom line, right? Like how the company is going to end up, yes, saving money, but I always try to bring it back to like the humanistic side,
Yeah.
which I mean, maybe it's good, maybe it's not, because I will tell you that I have heard a lot of no's,
Yeah.
right? I've heard more no's than I have heard yeses.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Um, and I think that there's not really a one size fits all approach because
Yeah.
if the higher ups, right? If the chiefs, if the C-suite individuals, if they already have buy-in, it will most of the time click and make sense. And I say most of the time because I mean you never really know, right? For some people it might be like, yeah, we don't have money to spend on that. Like,
Yeah.
thanks, but I'll keep your information just in case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's just one of those things where like if there's already buy-in, we're in a good spot. If there's not already buy-in, there's gonna have to be some convincing.
Yes.
Um, and I think a lot of the time, just from my experience, the answer is oftentimes no. When in our head, like you and me, we're just like, how do people not see that this is as important as it is? You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. It's knowing how to read the room. I think it's hard. It's like any sale, really, especially when we take me and you. I believe we're very similar in that path towards like human health, human potential, human optimization.
Hmm.
Is we take that very personally. That it's kind of like to me, it's almost like my mission. It's what I'm doing here. Like there is like the degree of the high perform. Like I calibrate a few different angles into how I coach everyone. There's degrees of high performance, there's degrees of high accountability, there's degrees of humanistic understanding, but there's always the endeavor to raise the individual to a high level. And whether that be that individual is raised to a high level to be here longer, just be healthier, you know, to go from a 40% deficient score, if you would saw like a health score, to can we be neutral, zero? Like, can you just be like okay? It doesn't have to be optimal. Can we just get you back to baseline health? The intention is always like a very personal mission to me. And so when you can see it and you're like, look, even at the bottom dollar sense, I know statistically and through numerically, qualitatively and quantitatively, you do this, your staff are better, your company is better, it returns more money, it's more profitable. But there's that initial buying, which is like, but we've got to drop 10K first. Oh, we've got to drop $100 per week per person, or $50 per week per member to attend, or what had like it's that friction point of it's trying to get that value differential to say, I guess you call it the delta, to have them understand the difference between what they're willing to pay and the value of the return that their staff and company get. Trying to get them to understand that it's a very painful uh, conversation sometimes, like you said, when they can't see that we're not just doing this to make money. We're doing this because we genuinely believe your company needs to be healthier. But by making it healthier, you make it better because having fitter, more athletic, more driven, more motivated, more active people generally produces a greater single direction. What is it we're building here? That sounds like a sporting team. What do sporting teams have? Cohesion, brotherhood, and culture. What is that culture about? Winning. Usually it's about winning and getting better. What does that look like in a company sense? Well, the win is you guys making more money.
Hmm. For sure. Absolutely. And it's the productivity output is a big one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now when people when people work better and more efficiently and they're feeling good in what they're doing, it's like it's guaranteed that the work is going to be there. Like yes, the return on investment is going to show. That like every dollar spent, you're making $3 back as far as companies go. Um, that's like that's not just like made up numbers, you know what I mean? Like these are like there have been studies showing that that's
Mm-hmm.
the ROI for a lot of these companies. Um, but now on top of that, even just think about this like um in Australia is type 2 diabetes like on the rise
Yeah.
similar to the US? It is. Okay, so over here someone with type 2 diabetes um they they're likely going to spend about 2.3 times more as far as like healthcare and maybe
Mm-hmm.
even just like general living. Um, because the cost of type 2 diabetes, is it's not necessarily a cheap one. And just even a side tangent, if someone has type 1 diabetes, it can also impact their things like costs and all of that. So my girlfriend, she has type 1 diabetes, and this is more frustration with the system where I'm
Yeah.
just like, there's this is insane to me that we don't have a better system to
Yes.
help, like, like people with, like, if someone has type 1 diabetes, they didn't necessarily choose that, right? Not
Yeah.
that people chose type 2 diabetes, but a lot of times type 2 diabetes is lifestyle related,
The cumulative,
where type 1,
cumulative action.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Where something like type 1, it's like, you know, people don't choose that, but the cost can go up because if the insurance has a deductible and they haven't met their deductible, like, I'm not even exaggerating, within the span of like probably a month, my girlfriend had to spend probably close to like $2,000 on things that she needed, aka glucose monitor and insulin, like to be able to live a good life. Like, that sounds kind of crazy to me, right? But now imagine, like, imagine employees, right? Imagine people, and let's take the type 1 diabetes out of the conversation, right? It's an important part of it, but the very common one, because people are not very healthy,
Hmm.
um, is the type 2 diabetes conversation. So that alone can cost individuals and or employers more money.
Hmm.
Like, that, in my opinion, that alone is an incentive for companies to be
Yeah.
like, hey, we should probably bring on these guys from Matter. You know what I mean? Like, we should do something a little bit different here because right now it's not working. When people are doing things regularly that aren't benefiting their overall health and well-being, something has to change. And we can have all the conversations with these people that we want until the decision makers don't really see it or feel it. Unfortunately, it might not necessarily happen for the company where they're like, hey, yeah, we should bring these guys on because they're going to do such a good job with X, Y, and Z. I think sometimes, these people just don't realize the importance behind it. But the money saving aspect of it is a very real one.
Hmm.
The productivity and better culture and just mood, right? If you do a vibe check in some
Hmm.
offices, the vibe is a little bit off. You know very well if people are just exercising on a regular basis, getting good sleep, like the women who are going through menopause have someone helping them go through that.
Hmm.
Like, these are all very real situations. Companies just have to be able to pay for it, right? Because you're gonna pay for what you get, or get what you pay for, kind of thing, in these types of situations. If you're not willing to pay for, even if it's just like, if it's not with you or with me, if they just say, you know what, we're gonna bring a personal trainer into the office because
Something.
we have
Yeah.
a gym
Something.
here, something that alone can cause a big change. But companies really have to be willing to walk the walk when it comes to that.
Yeah. That's it's something that I don't like. Take any emotionality out of it. That's very hard for most human nature. But you look at all the objective, tangibles, touch points, and data, and it's like the realistic return is it pays for itself, and it pays for itself in almost three different prongs, I guess, is where you're not having to spend money, where you're saving money, and where you're improving productivity and efficiency. So even if you don't care about the health and culture of your company, which as any executive and operational officer is just ridiculous, but let's say you don't, you still look better to your investors, your stakeholders, shareholders, to your boards, to your reportees. You look better because all of a sudden these numbers are going up, and all you have to do is spend $5,000 a quarter, 10,000, whatever the price is of your system. If you get a PT on base, on site, in the fire station that can give free sessions, like we're going to pay you to be here. We'll do a retainer price where you're going to be here for 10 hours a week, and you just charge us what you want in reasonable like acquisition. But as
Yeah.
long as that returns X to us, and 9 times out of 10, it returns X. But it's
For
like
sure.
even just on that premise alone, sold. How are you not sold? Then we add into it, well, it's always cheaper to retain staff than it is to buy new staff. Time in the market, advertising, retraining, loss of efficiency, loss of productivity from new hires to old hires to new hires. That's all cost equating that goes into the acquisition of a new staff member versus keeping an old one. You're now keeping a culture, like you have a culture that's festering, whether it's one person at a time, drip fed in. Oh, we go for a run every Monday, Wednesday because the wellness group we get together and do something active. We have a run or a bike ride or a gym session, grab a coffee. I like the sound of that. I want to be involved. You got people applying to work for you and people choosing to stay. So you've
Yep.
now got a stronger funnel of staff acquisition and you've got greater staff retention. Mood is building. They all want to stay longer. They aren't as sick. They aren't as unhealthy. They have better mental health days, less mental health days. They're looking long term at how they stay in the company. So they're getting promoted. They're more efficient. They want to uprise the ladder. And it's like all of these things, one company at a time, could completely shift the scale of an economy. But yes, you got that's looking very broad term, thinking of a corporate social change. But at the individual company level, it makes so much sense to put your staff first, even if your underlying reasoning is personal corporate uh, uh, like expectations of return.
Sure.
Even having that front facing pretend like we're all about our people, as long as you invest in it and believe in it, the back dollar pays for itself. The back end, the bottom dollar pays for itself. You get the return on plus interest basically on your investment. How do you not want to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I never forget I had uh so I used to work at a place where when they onboarded people, they would do like immersion training. And this immersion training, they would basically fly you up to like the headquarters, and you would be up there for about a week or so. And it's just like learning the system, the electronic medical record, like charting system, understanding just different dynamics, if you will, to the company at large. And a part of this, the CEO of the company would come and talk with us and all of that. Um, and this guy is awesome. Like he definitely is a good leader and a visionary when it comes to these types of things. Just a good human all around. His name is Jerry Ford. And I remember I asked Jerry, I was like, Jerry, what? It seems like you really care about the employees, like people like myself, and why is it that you find yourself doing that? I asked him a question somewhere along those lines. I probably just butchered some words, but it was somewhere along those lines. And he was like, if I make sure that you are good, healthy, happy, all the things, I know that you're going to take good care of the clients as well. And
Mm-hmm.
now everybody's winning. It's
Mm-hmm.
just an all around. And I was like, yo, for a CEO to understand that,
Mm-hmm.
this is huge. The better care he takes of myself and other employees, the other dietitians and other physicians and nurse practitioners and medical assistants and physical therapists, everyone that was like a part of the company, he understood it. The better care I take of them,
Mm-hmm.
then they're going to take better care of the people who are paying the bills. And it's just a really good cycle of CEO and C-suite people care about the people here. The people here care about the people there. The people there are going to make sure that these guys are happy. It's like it all stays in a really good cycle. But he understood that. He knows, like, hey, all right, I got to make sure that my folks here are doing a pretty good job and that they're happy, that they feel good, because then they're going to perform. It's just like you said, it's like a sports team. If a sports team feels, good and taken care of and they're executing at high levels, then awesome. If the culture of the team is good, then you know that things are going to be executed well. But again, it's that conversation of, top down.
And the funny thing is too, speaking of like that cyclical effect you're speaking of is you take care of those clients, like the whole downstream effect, you end up taking care of the clients much better. You know, the people who pay your bills, the client or the customer, whether it's a service-based prescription or whether it's a singular product sale, what happens from that good feeling client? Well, they're going to tell their friends and they're going to come back. Well, they're going to have a referral belief in the market, like, oh, I know a guy. Hey, you have this particular niggle problem, health concern. Oh, I know this company. They're really good. So now not only are you taking care of X, but X is returning you with referrals. So now you're basically getting what twofold on the initial investment of taking care of your staff because now they're taking care of customers. That customer is so happy and satisfied with the service, they're bringing more people. And now you've got an increased revenue stream, and you go, shit, my staff have been absolutely killing it. Here's a bonus. Here's a holiday. Here's a paid something. Here's you love this football team. Here's two tickets. Like it, it all just flows in this culture of productivity, but it stems from giving a shit. And that's at the crux of it. Really, that's what it is at the corporate level. It's like I'm a big believer in high performance and optimization at the executive level, but part of that is what is the why and the purpose of what you were doing? Having a why before you have an income or a product is so much more important because that's going to help you get through that and make those better decisions. Because if you're just talking about dollars, every executive that's talking about dollars is going to go, well, I'm not going to spend money that I don't have to. Even if that money returns more money, they're going to go, I don't want to spend it. If you go,
Mm.
we're making a company to give a shit about our people and build a different culture and have a more creative, uh, industrious approach, we're having a more, like thoughtful approach. I'm gonna want to it's more easy or easier to invest in my staff because now I'm taking care of the people I set out to take care of. And then they're going to take care of our customers. Those customers are going to be happy. They're going to refer onwards, and the cycle's going to continue. We're going to make more money, even in economies where markets going down. Of all the companies, they're going to come to is us. So it's
Yeah.
like to me, it's just it the high performance lens. Even here is like as an executive, you are showing up and performing by investing in your staff, by taking care of your people. That's your job. Lead and take care of. Don't just dictate and throw money at.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's the thing, right? It's like it's the understanding of, hey, this doesn't have to be a vicious cycle of constant turnover in the workplace, of
Mhm.
disgruntled employees, and so on and so forth. Now, don't get me wrong, in some cases you can't control that because I mean, people are people and it just kind of
Yes.
is what it is. That's like if somebody asked me, hey, does your dog bite? Like, it's a dog. Like of course it bites, right? But are you going to do something to provoke it?
Yeah.
Or, sometimes you also never know, right? Like sometimes a freaking human bites. Like you never know. But we definitely have to understand that there's there's something to just continuous
Mhm.
wellness and regularly feeling good
Mhm.
in the workplace. Like imagine someone going to a place where they work and they're looking forward to going. Like they're looking forward to being
Yeah.
there. That alone, that approach, that outlook, that mindset of I'm gonna go to a place that I love to be, that's
Mhm.
huge. So
Yeah.
like I think for C-suite and the decision makers of companies, I think they've got to understand that. Like, you know, by any chance, have you seen this show Severance
No.
on it's Apple Plus or I'll give you a quick breakdown of what Severance is. Severance, it's about people who work for a company, and there's a whole division of what's called severed employees. These severed employees, they go through a procedure where they open up their skull and they put this chip deep in their brain. I don't know what part of the brain, but it looked like, at least from the image, like it was like near like the pituitary area.
Mhm.
And anyway, what the whole purpose of this thing is in this company the severed employees, once they cross like a certain floor in the elevator and they make it to the severed floor, they are a completely different person. Like, meaning they're called their innie and their outie. The innie is the person that is basically working. The outie is the person that basically lives outside of that company. the innie and outie are essentially two different people.
Hmm.
Like the outie has no idea what happens at work, and then the innie only knows the work life. The way that the show evolves and all of that, they do a good job with the story and everything. But the reason that I bring that up is like you don't want people to live and work like that. You
No.
don't want their outside life and their work life to be totally separate. Yes, they are separate, right? But you want ideally people who like when they leave their work, they feel good about the place where they work
Mhm.
and they talk about it with other people. To your point, now you have less turnover, but now you also have more people that are interested in working for this company and
Yes.
people who don't want to leave the company. The retention stays high. Like it might sound silly, but these are very real world examples
Hmm.
of how successful corporate wellness and workplace wellness programs just benefit companies.
Yeah, it sounds like it sounds so simple to us, and so therefore it comes across almost like it's stupidity or it's too there's too much simplicity. It's like oversimplified the data, but the very real fact is those numbers add up, those points add up into the equation, and it all leads to a thriving, developing company. It's not just like like companies get so caught up in like how can I prevent outgoing so much where it's like we're looking at the top dollar and trying to prevent ourselves from losing money instead of going what can I invest in the company that returns and makes us money but also takes care of my people and all those variables like we've spoken about come into the equation of if we were to call it a term, I guess like the company health, not the individual's wellness or health, but as in like the company itself. How healthy is the company? The culture, the vibe check, the efficiency, productivity, staff retention, product completion of like time per unit completed for the actual job that they do, client retention, client satisfaction, all these different things that lead to what is your company culture slash health. These are all very real things that contribute to that making growing a better company. But it seems so simple, so they don't believe it's Occam's razor, right? The simplest answer often is the right answer. Could
Hmm.
corporate wellness and corporate like high performance be that simple to return the buck? Yes, it can be. The reason why
Yeah,
is
probably.
like it's hard to get buy-in because some people like so many people have rejected it. To me, it's very similar to athletes like sports psychology. There are athletes that swear by sports psychology, and there are athletes that are like, don't waste your time talking about this. If I can't see it, touch it, or breathe on it, I don't believe it. But
Yeah.
you see the ones at the very highest levels, even if they don't know it. Michael Jordan didn't have a sports psychologist, but he got sports psychology traits. He knew these things that he had mental triggers. I took it personally. That's a mental self-talk trigger that he uses to get himself psyched up. He just
Yep.
naturally did that, but it's a skill but there's some companies that naturally have a great culture and a great health perspective. But how do we take that from that culture and give it to another one? Just because it's like, you don't believe in it, we've got to get you to understand that that simple answer does produce this amazing outcome.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it truly is it is simple. Like that is 100% it. It's a simple approach to what seems to be a bit of a complex issue at the moment, right? Like tackling health and all of that. But it's like I think it's a pretty elegant solution that's overall it I think companies need to see that, right? Companies from an actionable standpoint doing some sort of a check on what are we spending money on,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where can we make certain adjustments? And then also analyzing, like, all right, what do the sick days look like? What was the reason for sick days? How many hospital visits? Are we even asking our employees if they're happy?
Mm-hmm.
And like, can we make changes? Like these are like again, the obvious answer is the answer, you know? I think companies just have to start realizing like, hey, maybe we have to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my brother, he's a firefighter, and he said something to me one day, and I might butcher it right now, but he was like, you know, there are two things that, again, I think I'm butchering it, but I'm gonna get the message across. He was like, there are two things that that firefighters can't stand, and it's change and the way things are. And so, and when he said that, I was just like, wow, you know what? Because in working with police, fire, military, and even in just corporations, like companies that have nothing to do with any of that, um, I see that. I see that some people are just so resistant to making changes, but they're gonna complain about the way that things currently are. And it's just like, do you not see the problem here? You know what I mean? So shout out to my brother on that one.
Do you like to just be a walking paradox because you are a literal walking contradiction? That's it's
Literally,
true.
yeah.
It's true. Some people just like to permanently be they like to permanently be a victim. Like it's like I'm a victim of the current cultural circumstance, but I'm also incapable of making a difference or doing anything to change it, even though, large scale change happens at the smallest possible level. Um,
Yep.
the most like there's just people that just want to be victimized by life and always have a limitation or an identity around there being a problem. But I think the thing for me is like if you can get a majority swing vote, seems Americans like to be on the very extremes of politics. It's either one or the other. If you can get that
Yeah.
that that majority swing, even starting with the minority vote to get going, eventually the threshold is broken through and it becomes the norm. And once it becomes the norm, everyone else has to follow suit. And it's
Yeah.
like, even if it's, for lack of a better word, even if it's peer pressuring you into being healthy, I'm sorry that I'm peer pressuring you to take care of yourself. The alternative is you're peer pressuring everyone else to be unhealthy and very health toxic. So to me, if
Absolutely.
the combined culture cohesion is peer pressuring you to be healthier and better for it, I'm not going to apologize for you being better in the long term. I'm going to say,
No.
suck it up. You're going to be a victim. I'd rather you be a victim and complain about being healthier and that I made you do it than complain and be dead in 5 years.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things, like, I am not a fan of of forcing people to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is one of those cases where I'm like, in this particular case, if it's going to benefit somebody's health,
Mm-hmm.
their overall physical, physiological, and mental slash emotional health and well-being, then you know what? By all means, I I'm not going to be upset at that.
Yeah, just like I think at that point, we found that the company actually it benefited quite well and it worked quite well when the company was clear on who it wouldn't serve. Like, it was up to the supervisors to sort of say like, yeah, this guy's in, this guy is not, he's going to waste your time. This guy's in, he's going to wait, this guy won't. But with that, there was kind of like the pressure then in the collective to like we kind of use it. This might be something you find useful yourself when you go through as well. Is we tied it to a vetting system. So the company believed, and we had the company believe and understand that if a company's willing to spend money to invest in their staff's health, and that staff member isn't willing to show up, well, then how are they showing up on the job site? Because if they can't show up and something's being paid for them, what are they doing when you're paying them? Like, are they even showing up to be effective on site? Or are they just kind of coming to get, tick the boxes and sort of like go home and under the radar do less work? So to me,
Yeah.
it's like it was very obvious on the people who were consistent and followed the tick the boxes. We have our app. We ran through the app, the software, literally tick and flick like 10,000 steps, 3 serves of vegetables, 2 serves of fruit, 4+ liters of water if you're on site, two if you're at home, 7 hours of sleep, no alcohol. Tick as many of these in the week as you can. If some people weren't even ticking or crossing, like not even a base level of accountability, we'd send that report through to the owners and go, okay, look, directors, here's your monthly report. This guy's not even ticking boxes. He's costing me $90 a week. I'd say go check his workload on site. They go check it, and it's like, oh, it turns out he's also being lazy there. Sweet. You just saved us thousands of dollars. Let's get you someone else,
Dang.
though, who we know is going to be effective. Oh, this guy kicks ass. Sweet. So it's kind of like we had the company buy in as a vetting system as well, which they loved. I'm sure the staff didn't love, but it was like to us and them, we don't want money for no reason, and the company doesn't want to spend money to have you do nothing. So it's kind of like if we're going to show up to put your health first, you can at least show up to take care of your health. And then, if you're not, it's very easy to see who's been lazy.
Yeah, that's a really cool approach to use it as like a vetting system in that way. Um, it makes me think of that saying, how you do one thing is how you do all things.
Yes.
So, is there that spillover in, hey, this person wasn't really ticking off those boxes to take care of themselves? Like, yeah, maybe it'll be beneficial to see what they're doing when they're at work. So, yeah, that's and like you said, maybe some employees may not like it, but it's also like we have to see things for what they are. What are you going to work for? Well, to get paid, obviously, but to work, to do your job.
Do your job,
If
yeah.
you're not doing your job, if you're not doing your job, then you probably shouldn't be mad if someone's calling you out on not doing your job, essentially. You know?
You just staked your way by and someone called you out on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it is what it is.
Where we could literally talk about this forever, and I'm equally as passionate about you, but I want to get people to see you guys in the performance realm, in the fire emergency services, defense services, and also in the corporate side of things. How do you guys get started? Like if you're working with a company, what is the first thing you come in and do that's like straight away they're like, oh shit, I'm so glad we did this. Like, how do I get them to be grabbed by you right now?
Man, that's it's like a two-headed answer, if you will. Part of it is a needs analysis, like what do things look like right now and how can we fill potential gaps? And then the big like I would say maybe wow component is teaching some sort of like a workshop or having like a seminar
Mhm.
to just educate on multiple fronts. I think that really grabs people like by their just like attention horns, and
Mhm.
it's like, hey, wow, this is pretty impactful stuff right here.
And if you're running one of these educational sessions, seminars, workshops, lunch and learns, is this the stuff you're talking about with the corporate side? Or are you just going straight to educating the staff to be healthier? Like, does it depend on who you're in front of, or what are you attacking?
Yeah, it'll depend, right? Because if it's a meeting talking with like the decision makers, then with them it's kind of like that's probably where the needs analysis conversation is
Yeah.
happening. If it's with the employees, like the workers who are making the money for these companies, um, then that's educational. That's like, hey, this is the nutrition side of things, this is the physical fitness side of things, and whatever else, wherever the conversation is going to lead to, or like just kind of like determining like, hey, this is going to be what this company is going to need. They specifically just need a nutrition workshop, and then boom. If it's another one, if we have to bring like certain psychological components into it and all of that, then we could always talk about, you know, talking about like behavior change, like how do you
Mhm.
make that cool kind of thing. So
Yeah.
educating on that. So it kind of depends, but the educational component, I think really just grabs people by the horns and is like, oh wow, like this is interesting information.
Man, I love it. If people to come and want this right now, where are they going to? What's the website? What are they looking to sign up for? What are they looking to get in contact with pretty much straight away?
Yeah. I typically actually tell people to just like contact me. They could email me at Erik the dietitian at gmail.com, or they could write to me on Instagram as well. And then also on LinkedIn. Um, and then as far as what they would get, it's really going to depend. It depends on like size of the company. Another part of it is also going to depend on cost, like how much are companies willing to be able to spend on their employees and all of that too. Um,
Which after a conversation like
so
this should be a lot.
that what?
Which after a conversation like this should probably be a lot.
Oh yeah,
Be willing to
yeah.
spend some money on it.
For sure, most definitely. Yeah, but it all just really depends on things like size of the company, what they're going to be needing as well. Um, and like in some cases it is going to be like, all right, yeah, we want this to be an educational workshop for, just a one day type of seminar workshop. All right, cool. Other places might reach out and they might be open to like the idea of doing a retreat, for example. All right, so cool. If you want to do a retreat, then that's going to look different from something else. it's I guess the sad but real thing is that it comes down to the spending, like the money side of things for a lot of the companies, or if not all of them. But everyone's needs might be a little bit different than one from the other. So yeah, it depends. In some cases, they might just want to do like once a month lunch and learns, right?
Mhm.
In other cases, they're gonna want access to like the coaching team,
Mhm.
and they're going to be getting coached, on a very regular basis. So yeah, it all kind of varies, but there's a variety to what can be done. I mean, the
Mhm.
limits are just whatever we allow to be the limits.
I love that. Bro, thank you very much for jumping on. It was a fantastic conversation. I hope it gets people thinking a little bit differently about just health, corporate culture,
Absolutely.
corporate wellness.
Agreed.
I personally like to see, I live down more of the high performance lane. I like to push that route for people, but it's because I genuinely believe people have more, they have a greater potential than they realize they have. And it's just oftentimes they need to make better health choices to reach it, whether that be in their personal, professional career, whether it be in training, in athletics, whatever it is. And to me, it's just like corporate wellness, being healthy in the office is going to make you better. So having that conversation, understanding that you can optimize with nutrition. I mean, we didn't even talk about the benefits of having certain foods being healthier in terms of like neurotransmitters and pre antagonists to neurotransmitters, things that are going to make you think and feel better. All these things that
Hmm.
fueling effectively for your workday, so it's not 2 o'clock come downs and your post carb fatigue, like all these things that are massive conversations, but it's no different to optimizing an athlete. We're just optimizing your life to be better and live longer and enjoy your job.
For sure. And to your point, like I think if we treat people similar to the way that we treat athletes, even if they're not this high level, you know, soccer player or basketball player, um, I think people would benefit. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. I think people in large part would benefit being treated similar to
Mhm.
athletes, even if they are not, quote unquote athletes.
I have this like final thought, I guess. This framework philosophy that I'm pushing now on LinkedIn a bit more is for me. It's about pushing athletes could learn a lot from being like executives, and executives could learn a lot from being like athletes. And executive could be
Mhm.
extrapolated out to just corporates in general. I think there's a lot that can be swapped between the two. Like there's just so much that executives, C suites, what the corporates can learn from the athlete approach to life, and vice versa. The athletes being more executional, being executive, being that executive like operation. Again, it's an inverse relationship, but both could benefit from each other. But like I said, I think it's a great point. People could learn to be better if we treated them like athletes, just a little bit more, just a little bit.
For sure. And there was I forget the exact number, but I saw, so this is specific to women. I think it was something in the 90 something percent of women in C-suite positions, here in the States, they played or were in a Division 1 college sport. Um, and to me, it makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
think that that's necessarily the case with men.
Mhm.
But I remember seeing that statistic and I was like, that's kind of cool. And then you think about it, it's like, well, it makes sense. Like these women being very high performers and making it into a C-suite position, like it all kind of adds up. Now, whether it's coincidence or not is another conversation, but it makes sense. They're high performers,
Mhm.
like on multiple levels.
Man, like I said, we could be here all day because
For
our
sure.
conversations always run fantastically like this, which is what I love. Thank you very much for jumping on, my friend. And we'll put all the links and details below. Happy to get in touch with you. And we'll be pumping out snippets from this because, yeah, I think both of us can agree it needs to be had. The conversation needs to be had more in this space and sector. So hopefully it starts to get pumped out that way.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, please be sure to tag, collaborate, whatever on Instagram and all the things. But it's always a good conversation. So I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, brother. We'll chat soon.
All righty, thank you.